I am free at last. And honestly, this theme resonates with me so much because I have been feeling like I was in shackles for the month of June. The uprising that happened at the end of the May really shook me. And at the time, I was working on a script for the ABC TV Writing Fellowship. I've been working on trying to be a TV writer for a while now, and I was writing a comedy script for the application, and that weekend I was just not in the mood to write a comedy. And luckily, thankfully, ABC changed their deadline to the end of June, and so it gave me lots of time to both process my feelings, and ultimately what I decided to do was funnel my feelings into the script that I was working on. So I ended up writing a comedy about my experience of that weekend, my wife and my experience that weekend. And so one, I'm super, super grateful to have that script done, to have applied for the ABC Fellowship. And throughout the month of June, I've been pretty absent in the Ahiah community. I've been kind of showing up in the Zoom room, waving and saying hello, saying I've got a deadline and need to run. Reverend Scott has been asking if I could be available for this and that, and I keep saying no. So I am feeling free at last of this script that I have been working on, and grateful to be ready to embrace the spiritual community. And so I am thinking about this theme of freedom. I honestly feel like the experience of both sheltering at home and also the uprising has really demonstrated that if there's ever a time for us to show up as our authentic selves, today is that day. And for me, it started with working from home. Once I was no longer going out in the world doing things like not saying hello to Brian Menifee in the grocery store, I being distant from everyone else, socially distant from everyone else, really allowed me to develop a relationship with my intuition that I had never had before, because it's pretty much just me and my intuition. My wife is here too, but I mean, her and I are working in different parts of the house, and I'm spending a lot more time alone than I have ever spent in my life before. And I have just recognized all of these beliefs that not only don't serve me any longer, but the world doesn't require me to maintain. I realize that I get to show up in online spaces authentically, completely authentically, because the social norms, the rules of the world are completely out the window. And this experience, this conversation that we're having about race, honestly has made me feel incredibly liberated. The first conversation that people were having, to be honest, there was a lot of non-Black people in my life that were saying things that hurt my feelings. Things like, I don't see color, and it's all good, it's all God, so we don't actually have to talk about race. And there was a time with Blackout Tuesday, I made this conscious choice to shut down all of my things on social media, post a black square, and discuss how I was choosing to honor Blackout Tuesday. And there were people who were saying that I was honoring this day wrong. And so after sort of processing the trauma of people in my life who had beliefs and feelings that I wasn't aware of, after having lots and lots of people kind of reach out to me for prayer and support, and feeling like I wasn't mentally available to pray and support for others, I am grateful to have come out the other side of this feeling free at last, recognizing that as a Black person, I can be comfortable and confident speaking up and advocating for myself in ways that I was never comfortable before. Here's an example, is just yesterday I was in a meeting where somebody was pitching a TV show about a Black lesbian, and it was three white men actually who were pitching the show. And there was, the main character is a Black lesbian. Fun fact, I'm also a Black lesbian. And so I'm the only Black person in the Zoom room, only Black queer person, obviously, in the Zoom room, and asked questions that I would not normally be comfortable asking, just because I am the Black queer person in the room. And I just don't want to be, the person who's constantly bringing up these topics and these subjects. But the reality is the fact that I get to be in these rooms and speak up and speak my truth and encourage people to look at things from different perspectives, and recognize that sometimes when someone's trying to write from the perspective of a character that they don't have personal experience with, that maybe they're not the best person to tell that story, being comfortable to come out and say that and be free to speak up and speak my mind I really feel like what's happening in the world is we are giving ourselves the opportunity to recognize that now is the time for us to have uncomfortable conversations. We will never get through this experience from a place of lightness, peace, evolution, and learning unless we lean into the discomfort, unless we embrace the fact that we have to choose to enter in and have these uncomfortable conversations so that we can experience a greater understanding and connection and evolution of what it means to be a spiritual being in a spiritual community. And so I'm grateful for the inspiration that I've had around this topic, and I really encourage you all to really think about what free at last means for you, of knowing that our world has shifted away. The world we knew is gone. And Michael Beckwith talked about this experience that we're currently living through, in some ways, is the apocalypse. The world that we once knew will no longer be the same. And each one of us has this opportunity to really identify who we want to be in this world. How do we want to show up? Are we choosing to lean into our uncomfortable conversations? Are we honoring being gentle with ourselves every step of the way? And I will also say that as I talked about experiencing the challenge of what's happening, I've had to be gentle with myself in a way that I'm not used to. I've had to take lots of breaks. I've had to recognize that I'm the kind of person that operates at 100 miles an hour. And in this current landscape, I just do not have the bandwidth, the energy, the mindset to be able to operate at 100 miles an hour. I've had to go like 20, and that is a pace that I am completely uncomfortable with. But that's an example, is that all of us are being pushed outside of our comfort zones. And in reality, our comfort zones weren't working for us to begin with. That the universal design and structure, I honestly feel like these uprisings and the health challenge that we're all experiencing as a global community is because we had gotten too comfortable in our comfort zones. And now was the time for that comfort zone to fall away. We basically the world had to force us to sit down, take some time alone, look at ourselves, and identify what beliefs work for us, what beliefs don't work for us. How do we want to show up in the world? And how do we lean into the discomfort? How do we choose to be gentle with ourselves every step of the way? And so this month, and this experience of practicing Unchained spirituality, I invite you to identify in what ways that you are uncomfortable, what ways that you are avoiding discomfort, and choosing, as often as you remember, to find opportunities to be comfortable with the discomfort, to recognize what it is that we're feeling, being gentle with ourselves every step of the way, and remembering that right now, today, we are free at last.